Now, equities, as you know, have cheered this historic win by the BJP-led NDA as the market started a new bull run. And with the election results out, what are some of the other key events that this market is watching very closely? To discuss the way ahead for equity markets in India, Bhat of Dalton Capital joins us now. Mr. Bhat, good afternoon to you. Thank you very much for joining us. My colleagues in the studio are very bullish, so let me play the cynic and the naysayer and ask you. We've seen BHEL go up some 45% just on this month itself, in May, right? I get the hope that people have in a new government. But do you think that at some point, some of these stocks are now entering what they call the froth stage? Do they really deserve a 50% move up in a month with none of the underlying fundamentals changing?
Well, this represents the change in sentiment, the business confidence, the investor confidence that is there in a Modi government delivering on what is the promise of India. I think it will be severely put to test in the budget. So till the budget, I think the market should be around these levels. The hopes will continue unless there is something about the ministry formation which disappoints the market. But otherwise, I think the next big statement to watch from the government is the budget statement. And
the reason I use BHEL, sorry Senthil, the reason I use BHEL is I think just barely 2 months ago, we were talking about all these non-performing orders at BHEL, right? A large quantum of them, a newspaper front page, the story, the stock was in a panic on that day. It's been barely 2 months, nothing's changed fundamentally. I get hope, but do you think this is way too much hope? So I'm using BHEL only as an illustration. Do you see froths building up in any of these sectors in the market is my broader question. Do you think maybe we've overdone it in some sectors or in some kinds of stocks?
Yeah, certainly. I think the froth is certainly there in some sectors, some of the stocks, because the rising tide has taken everyone up. But there would certainly be some of them which might hold promise post the budget. But at the time of the budget, I think people will come to know as to whether this is justified or not. As of now, it looks like as if the market is sort of extending the hope rally a bit too much.
Okay, I'm going to take the contrarian view. Yeah. In fact, she said that I'm bullish. I'm going to say, had the market not reacted enough? Because we've had admittedly, we had 1100 point run up before the news. Yes, it is sell on news, but this is not new. This was not expected. This was way beyond expectation. So, why has the market reacted in some senses so mutedly? People are talking about this being game changing. People are talking about multi-year bull runs. People are giving us targets for the Sensex at 30,000, Nifty at 9,000, 10,000. So, putting all of that together, what has kept the markets in some senses actually slightly more muted than we would have expected from a government coming back with an absolute majority, a right-wing government coming with an absolute majority after so many years?
Well, I think you should really start from the first sort of opinion polls that we got sometime probably in February. Since then, the market has gone up by 20% or more than 20%. Okay. So therefore, I think this is not called muted.
All right, no, I'm saying, okay. So if we should get the budget that you're talking about, and if that should be the budget that the markets want, what is the upside then?
Well, upside based on fundamentals cannot be very high from here, but I think sentiment can take it up a bit, somewhere near about 8,000 levels is possible. But then again, it has to be sustained by, the government's moves in terms of debottling, empowering the ministries to take decisions, the view on subsidies, issues like that which need to be addressed. So I think these are the things that the market will look at, how the government finances will be managed, what will be the view on the basic problem that we had of lack of decision making, and how is it going to fix that whole decision making apparatus. I think these are the things that the market will look at. And finally, it should translate into investor confidence, business confidence, and entrepreneurs going back to the drawing board and thinking of new projects.
It's about, just to extend Menika's point, we had PNB's numbers last week, and clearly, we got reminded that the asset quality problems are still there. But we've seen doubling of stock market prices for some of these PSU banks. Is this just hope trade, or is this,
can growth really take care of NPA?
The question is this unrealistic hope trade or is this realistic hope trade?
Indeed.
I think that's the difference we're trying to draw here, and therefore your comment on it.
Yeah, in some of them, I think it is unrealistic.
Which ones?
Like say, for example, the public sector banks, I think their problems are very serious. On the NPA front, on the capital adequacy front, I think the government has to take a view as to how they're going to provide them capital, either through new capitalization or through allowing them dilution below 51%. I mean, issues like that need to be sorted out. These are major issues which probably can be addressed only in the budget. So before that, I don't see anything much happening. But I think there's a lot of hope that these problems will be fixed. But I think that hope is sort of overextended in the case of public sector banks. The problems are very, very serious, and I think it will take some time for these banks to really come back.
Is it just PSU banks where you think that it might be unrealistic hope playing out? Are there any other sectors which you might say as well are witnessing unrealistic hope right now?
No, quite a lot of the PSUs have structural problems. Structural problems, and finally we have to see whether the PSUs will be seen as jobs for the boys, or they will be allowed to function professionally. I think that is very important. That is a big call that the market has to take, a big call the government has to take as to whether with the sort of majority that he has, he can really take a clean break from the past and say, okay, here it is, I will give you all the autonomy, you produce results. In that case, I think the PSU basket might do well.
But to pin any of that, Mr. Bhat, to the hopes from this budget, given that this budget is going to be presented within a couple of months of this new government taking over, isn't that a bit of a stretch? If I remember correctly, I think it was President Obama who, when he was first elected, said, this is the most popular I'll ever get. From here, it's always downhill for a leader, right? So if I was to extrapolate the same to Mr. Modi and say, this is the best of his popularity wave, and from here onwards, fulfilling expectations is always it's a mug's game. I mean, it's a really difficult one to succeed in. So this budget, too early to pin our hopes on?
No, actually, I think when he is so popular, in the first year of a new government, that is when the tough decisions are to be taken. And people will give him time, because even if he takes tough decisions, he can always say that it is all the muck that has been created with the past earlier government, so therefore I have to clean it up. So if he addresses subsidies, say for example the oil subsidy, which is the biggest non-merit subsidy, if he addresses that squarely and says, I'm going to deregulate this completely, and probably tweak a bit of the duties just to see that things are not very bad as far as the consumer is concerned, that could be a big sort of impetus to those stocks. And the issues like this can be done, and this is the best of times for him to do, because if he gives himself 6 months time, there'll be state elections, there'll be other elections. So I think he's never going to make it. He is now expected to do the big things, and he has to do the big things. The 1991 like budget has to be presented.
The story today really is, Mr. Bhat, is the move that we're seeing in mid-cap. So clearly people are jumping in there with the hope that everything that's been beaten down over the last 5 years, that's where the most money is going to be made. Would you agree with that kind of strategy? Because that's clearly what seems to be working today.
Yeah, that seems to be working today. I mean, there's always sector rotation, but I think mid-caps are the ones that probably have the highest amount of risk as far as seeing whether they will be affected by the new government and the change in policy. I think there is still time for mid-caps to, people to latch on to mid-caps.
You would not rush into it?
No, I think there's enough money to be made in the large caps if you get them right. So I don't think we should really worry about mid-caps now.
So cyclicals, or would you say that...
Cyclical is the only one. I think that is why you have IT and pharma and the state, because people have to rotate money. So the money was there, so that has to come here, and that's where you see the value and see the potential delta.
But at what point would value emerge in IT? Because we've already seen HCL Tech, for example, turn year to date negative. We've seen Infosys fall 25% from the highs. At what stage IT stocks will become a buy?
At some stage when the rupee starts depreciating again, rupee is on a one-way move now. So I think that is certainly going to affect the fortunes of IT, at least if not now, probably a couple of quarters hence, because they would have hedged quite a lot of their receivables. So therefore I think there is no great hurry as far as IT is concerned, because they are not really a play on the domestic domestic sentiment. So I think the domestic economy is the one that is expected to change dramatically and offer value for investors. So therefore I think they are certainly on the back burner for now.